Church. We are a diverse religious community seeking spiritual experience and all forms of knowledge in an atmosphere of acceptance, love, and respect. Our mission is to protect and perpetuate religious freedom, tolerance, and knowledge, to challenge injustice, and to nurture and serve one another in the wider community. Our service leader this morning is Jim Eller, and our musicians are Dan Brown, Pam Brown, Tana Del Prady, and Al Shaloha. Okay, let me see. What do we do? What do we do now? Okay, all right. So we need to welcome and announcements.
Okay. You can. After the service, please join us in the social room for refreshments and conversation. Today at 12:30, we will have a forum of drumming and West African rhythms led by Tana Del Prady, Donald Brown, Al Saloa, Pam Brown, and Barbara can't be with us, but she had intended to be. So, yay, looking forward to that.
The Lowe's bucket, you might look at the Lowe's bucket.
That's our drum. That's our official drum, yeah. It's a symbol. Okay. Yeah. The games group meets on the third Thursday of the month, so they're scheduled to meet this Thursday, June 18th at 7 p.m. in the church social room. They play games of various sorts until approximately 9. For more information, contact Joe Melnick. Goodbye party strikes me as a contradiction in terms. But we're having one. Well, we're not having one. There will be one at Modella Art Gallery to say goodbye to Rebecca Breenan as she goes on to a new job and a new home. It will be Saturday, June 20th from 5:30 to 8:30. Just bring yourself. Boo. Yeah, that's fair. I like that. Next Sunday's sermon will be provided by Reverend Susan Ross. Her sermon title will be Respair. As she mentioned in the June newsletter, it means the recovery of hope after despair, or perhaps during it. Next Sunday is our traditional monthly after-church potluck, so keep that in mind as you do your meal planning this week. The theme for this month is celebration. Bring food to celebrate. Celebrate what? Whatever you wish to celebrate. Between now and next Sunday, June 21st, you can order the new UU Church of Stillwater t-shirts with the UU Values flower logo. There are adult sizes in both short and long sleeves, and youth sizes in short sleeves, all in a variety of colors. This is not a fundraiser, so you're just going to pay what the t-shirts cost. Donna Sinnis has volunteered to pick up all orders and bring them to the church when the shirts are ready, rather than people running up there themselves, and certainly rather than getting them shipped, which would cost you an additional $9. Thank you, Donna. Beginning Thursday, August 6th, and running for 8 weeks, perhaps not consecutively, Mary Kate Couch and Greg Winnie will be leading a listening circle on the journey into wholeheartedness. Each session will begin at 7. There's a sign-up sheet in the social room, and the listening circle will have 6 to 10 members in it. If you have an announcement, please come up and use the microphone. This one's probably on too. Okay, I think we're ready for our minute.
Hi, I'm Donna. I'm using this minute this morning to talk about two updates from the outreach and care committees, the best committees, as they shall be referred to from here on out. Back in March at the Canvas meeting, the best committees, outreach and social action, had a brainstorming group that identified a really great idea. It's a skills fair where people who have useful skills can share them with others. These can be for personal enrichment, personal enrichment and lifelong learning, career development, or even saving money. To determine the right scope and scale for our fair, I need a subcommittee. It'll be the best subcommittee. If you're interested in helping to plan a skills fair, let me know. Additionally, I've put together a questionnaire, which you'll find on the square table in the social room. If you have a skill to share, and we can think budgeting, simple car maintenance, honing job interview talents, or crocheting, really anything, please fill it out and return it to me, or drop it in the red suggestion box also on the square table in the forum room. The second update from the best committees came out of a conversation I had with an older congregant who expressed interest in having some activities and programming geared toward their demographic. As a result, I created a survey, which is also on the square table in the social room. This is open to anyone, regardless of age or gender. You can decide for yourself if it applies to you. Please fill it out and return it to Sandy Schultz, Linda Smolin, or any other care committee member. I also need some help from someone who has not just the skills but the software to make fillable forms that can be sent out in the mail for people who are not here, where we can send them the surveys also. And if there are any questions, I can entertain them after this. And I thank you all so much, and I appreciate your input to help us move forward. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're ready for our prelude.
Sung it before. It's a round, and it's called Bele Mama, and it is from Cameroon. It's a very simple, and you know it, so just follow along with us, and please have some fun, okay?
Bele mama, yeah. Bele mama, yeah. Bele mama, bele mama, bele mama, bele mama, bele mama, bele mama, yeah. Bele mama, yeah. Bele mama, Bele mama, yeah.
we gather and worship and light our chalice in the light of truth and in the warmth of community and in the energy of action. Well, in part, this morning is Pride Month and Pride Sunday. It's an affirmation and welcoming of our GLBTQ community, who is a part of our congregation and our denomination, and people we celebrate. It's personal because sexuality is always personal. My sexuality and yours, those of our loved ones, family, and congregation. It's also institutional. Unitarian Universalism has been about justice making throughout our entire history. I think of Horace Mann and public education in the 19th century. I think in the early 20th century of Elizabeth Cady Stanton and the suffrage movement, suffers. I think about Martin Luther King and James Reeb and so many others who gathered in Selma and said, justice matters, and put our lives on the line. And I think about the last 50 years where we have said sexual minorities are human beings and they have rights. And we have been with them. I want to take a moment to remind you or to teach you or to inform you about some of our history, Unitarian Universalist history. 1970, 56 years ago, the Unitarian Universalist Association passed its first resolution affirming the rights of gay, lesbian, and bisexual members to be both in leadership and in membership in our denomination in 1970, we said. In 1973, we collectively established the Office of Gay Concerns and decided to call it Gay and Lesbian Concerns, and eventually GLBTQ+. In 1984, the General Assembly affirmed the legitimacy of same-gender weddings and union services decades before it became nationally legal. In 2004, a Unitarian Universalist minister officiated at the first legal marriage of a lesbian couple in this country, following the case of Massachusetts and Goodrich in the Department of Public Health. Hillary Goodrich was then and is now a Unitarian Universalist staff member. In 2009, the Unitarian Universalist Association launched Standing on the Side of Love to encourage us to stand with or to work with people of GLBTQ+ in their struggle and in their oppression, to be with them as allies and advocates. Our issues around supporting transgender has been equally phenomenal. In 1988, we ordained the first openly transgender minister in our denomination. In 1988, we ordained a transgender woman. In 1996, bisexual and transgender were officially affirmed as a part of our denomination. And again in 1987, we established the welcoming congregation process, where we said, the denomination said to congregations, if you don't get it, we'll send people out and do workshops to educate you so you can come up to speed on what it means to be truly loving and welcoming as a community and get over your homophobia and your transphobia. And we did the work. And you think it was easy. Easy to say now. In 1987, congregations were saying, this is creeping denominationalism. They're trying to take us over. Unitarian Universalists are passionately independent. Who are they to tell us? But it was worth the fight. In 2024, the Unitarian Universalist denomination overwhelmingly passed a resolution embracing the inclusion of transgender, non-binary, and gender diverse individuals as essential to who we are as a denomination. So it's both institutional and personal. It's personal. And if it isn't personal, it ought to be. I think of Matthew Shepard. Who knows who Matthew Shepard is, eh? I remember Matthew Shepard, who died for the crime of having been gay and being caught out. I remember Mark Vickers, who served on the Oklahoma Interfaith AIDS Network Board, rural Oklahoman, who said, "I'm so lucky I got AIDS because it meant that I was out." And being out in the early 1990s and late 1980s meant that he was confronted, but because he had AIDS, he was surrounded by people in his rural community who loved him. And he said, "The best thing that ever happened to me is I got AIDS because I could be me without apology." I remember Mark Vickers. In 2016, the Pulse nightclub, 49 people killed in a gay bar, an additional 58 wounded. It's been a struggle. It is a struggle. I remember them. I remember the AIDS quilt filling an entire gymnasium and walking the quilt and realizing how many people I knew. And finding myself in tears and saying to my wife, "I need to go outside and cry." There was nothing else I could do. I remember how many we lost. I remember my best teacher ever in my life, my high school social studies teacher who I had for 3 years in high school, Bill Dransfield. San Francisco Bay Area in the 1960s, almost out. Those who knew, and those who didn't know didn't see it. And then I graduated, and he came out and said, "Yeah, Jim, I'm gay, and you're welcome to come meet my partner." I loved him and do. I remember him, and I remember so many who have lost their lives in the struggle. During the height of the AIDS pandemic, when we were losing anyone diagnosed with HIV was soon AIDS, and those with AIDS was diagnosis was death. So we sang a lot of times at the memorial services, and what we sang was, "We are a gentle, angry people singing for our lives," because they were singing for their lives. With that introduction, I'd like us to move towards singing that song, our first hymn, number 170, in our gray hymnal. Stand as you're able or willing. Join with me now in singing, "We are a gentle, angry people." We've got to sing the children downstairs, too. Oh, yeah, I forgot. Let's sing the fifth verse, please. Thank you. And now our children's moment.
That's all right. We are young and old together. I was going to read a story here. Oh, I want to say thank you to Pam for playing and accompanying us. She just came in this morning and filled in. We were going to do it via video, and I was not happy with that option, and so thank you very, very much. And we're going to sing it again in place of the second hymn. So that's perfect. So I told Linda I had a story that I could read, and as I was practicing, I realized I've already read it here. And so I think week before last, I was out smelling the honeysuckle out here. And then for my birthday, and Sandy Schultz walked by, and we talked about it a little bit, and for my birthday, she gave me a honeysuckle scented candle. So when I was thinking this morning how much I was regretting that I had already read The Lonesome Prince, the honeysuckle story, which I wrote, I don't know, in the 1990s maybe, came to mind. And so here we are. This story is called Honeysuckle. I'm on my bench under a big old cedar studying how the clouds are bent on hiding the sun. I see a hole coming up, but Mr. Cloud himself, he don't see it, and he lets the hole get right up in front of the sun. A shaft of sunlight slips out across the field, and everything takes on a shine. Sunlight skims over the grass faster than wind and slides down the side of the greenhouse onto my honeysuckle hedge. Sometimes folks will say, "Oh, look, the sun's breaking through." But sun, it don't break through. Sun's always there, shining, and sun don't give a lick about what clouds do. I've been working most of my life like everybody else, and lots of the time I'm thinking I should be doing something else or be thinking something else, being something else, till today. I look around the farm and see what the ones around me are doing, and I see how it is with them being their own selves. And me, I see how maybe I can take a hint about being my own self. A minute later, Cloud sets himself between Sun and me. He thinks he's showing me who's boss, thinks it makes him somebody, but he's just chicken poop on plaster. He forgets he couldn't be anything to anybody if it wasn't for sun making the heat and evaporation and creating Mr. Cloud himself. Mr. Cloud's too stuck on himself to believe it, but I like the soft light just as much as the bright light. I even like it when the sky's dark and thick with clouds. And I like it when there's not any clouds up there at all. It's enough for me that Mr. Cloud is being just who he is, just doing what he does, and that sun is just being sun, doing what sun does, and both of them leaving the rest of us to mind our own beeswax. Take honeysuckle vine. She's just interested in being who she is. That's all. She don't care to be a tree or a beauty queen. She's already a queen and already a beauty, just being her own self. It's a good thing that sun's there all the time, because honeysuckle, she's got to have light, got to have dirt, got to have air. Me, I've got to have sun the same as her. Got to learn about the world, need enough money to get by, got to have love. Honeysuckle, she's got to have water too, so she's growed herself roots to catch the rain. Now, spring and fall, there's plenty of water. It pours down on her, and she just spreads out her roots and fills herself up. But summer and winter, it can get real dry, and that's a different story. So honeysuckle, she growed some of her roots clear out under the greenhouse to reach out, searching for where the water puddles up. Them roots, they're going to keep her strong through the summers and winters for years to come. Them roots, they hold her up and get her some nourishment so she can stretch out her branches and give to the whole wide world what she was born to give. Now, honeysuckle, she takes in the sun and the air and the water, and she breaks out with her flowers and her sappy, sugary smell. She feeds the butterflies and the bees. And Mrs. Hummingbird, she hums there, hanging in the air, taking in her nourishment, first from this flower, then another, sucking up the honey drop, filling her tank, revving her engine, keeping up the beat of her hummingbird song, keeping up the beat of her wings, keeping time with the beat of her hummingbird heart. Me, I could let out love like honeysuckle lets out her sweet smell. I could be a sweet drop of honey feeding the beat of the songs in people's hearts. That honeysuckle, she's taking in water and taking in sunlight that's always there, shining, and she's making roots and stems and leaves and making flowers and sweet scent aplenty, enough for anybody nearby to fill up their whole nose. They look around and they feast their eyes on a wall full of pink and white flowers, and every flower is a little smile, and every heart is filled full up. Me, I could take in my daily bread and the love that's always there shining, and I could be making words and songs and poems and things to do and ways to grow, and I could be a blossoming bush of love and learning and laughter and friendship and joy aplenty. Now, honeysuckle, she must have been growing for some time to have her roots so deep and her branches so full of flowers. It must take years to grow enough to have so much to give. And me, I'm here where I've been planted. I see where I can grow for all the years that are left to me. I can reach out my roots and drink all the love that showers down on me. Stretch out my branches and bloom in the sun, just being who I am, doing what I do, just being me, my own self. Thank you. Go now.
Pride is a kind of becoming. So I'll share a little bit of my thoughts here as I stand in front of you and reflect on what pride means to me. This is a reading. Pride is a becoming. It is a journey and a destination. It's aspirational. Sometimes pride is a fake it until you can make it strategy. It's bricks I try to lay on the road ahead. Pride is showing up to work. It's standing at the podium of my classroom and feeling the impact my visibility has on hundreds of students. I'm a professor and gay and out. Pride is remembering the teachers that showed up for me as a young man. Pride is also wearing my unapologetically queer t-shirt at the gym and seeing people's reactions. Pride is volunteering in my children's class and fielding questions for my son's kindergarten classmates like, "Are you a boy or a girl?" Pride is unlearning the miseducation of sex that is baked into our heterosexual normative white supremacist culture. Pride is learning and accepting that identity and desire and passion and attraction are fluid and relational and not static. Pride is something that I'm trying to embed in my anatomy. Pride is something I carry in my very bones. Pride is what we celebrate here today. And our offering.
Did not introduce the other song. I'll put this back down. I did not, it's Bele Mama, and it's from Cameroon. Cameroon. And it means call your mama. So we just called all of our mamas in here. So we have a real crowd today. This next song is out of the Blue Teal Hymnal, and it is in Swahili, and it is Bwana Awa Bariki, which means may God give you a blessing. So we're going to do this song for you, and I want you to kind of pay attention, if you will, because we're going to be probably singing this song out of our hymnal too. Later.
Yeah. Okay. Let me see. Who's it go to? Okay, Raising Voices. All right, I got it.
Are we playing now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Good morning. It's nice to be back with you. I haven't preached in a few years, and so I understood that one of your regular circuit riding ministers said, I'm going to take a 6-month sabbatical, and you're going to have to find somebody else. And Susan says, oh my God, can you do one of the Sundays? And I said, well, I can do 1, or I can do 4, or I can do 6, whatever will support this congregation, because this is a great congregation. And so I'm delighted to be back with you. I start with historic scripture, Hebrew. Micah says, what does God require of you but to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God? Christian scripture says, in everything, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. The prophet, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, we're all tied in a single garment of destiny. Therefore, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And I say, and in this way, what happens to one happens to all, because we are all one. Therefore, choose love and kindness. Practice justice making, for it is what love looks like in action. The Unitarian Universalist tradition affirms the inherent worth and dignity of every person, but we've not always said it that way. We've said in the past something like, every person has within them the spark of the divine. We're all part of the same mystery of existence, and therefore we're all children of one God. Same language, same intent, said differently, there is within each one of us human dignity and human uniqueness that is both unique and universal. I'm self-aware and self-conscious, and so are you. I'm aware of my joy and my suffering and my pain, the times I've experienced injustice, and I know you are too. Can you remember a time that you felt like, well, that just isn't fair? Do you know your own experience of injustice? Imagine that someone else is being treated ridiculously arbitrary because of some category and treated as less than human. And how is that if that's you? Our pain is no different than the pain of anyone else. Our experience of injustice is no different than anyone else's. And if we don't stand together against injustice, then it can happen to any one of us at any time. Or there but for fortune go you and I in the case of injustice. Our Unitarian Universalist movement has got this from the very beginning. For more than 50 years, we have stood with GLBTQ folks and said, we are with you and we get it. For 50 years, half a century, we've been on the right page. And it wasn't always. But sexual orientation, people have scientifically proven about as much choice around their sexual orientation as whether they're right-handed or left-handed, or the color of their eyes or the color of their skin. You don't get to choose, you are. Who you love is who you love. Who you're attracted to is who you're attracted to. And you should be made bad because of it. Some religions tell you if you're sexual, you're bad. Unitarian Universalists say we're all sexual, and by the way, it's good. Don't use it to harm others, and if you haven't had it in a while, try it. In the 1980s, I was the minister at the church in Peoria, Illinois, Universalist Unitarian Church, Center of the Continent congregation, lovely congregation. Loved being there. I learned a lot from them and cherished my years with them. After 6 years, I thought, okay, they've had enough of me. It's time for me to learn more and move on to my next congregation. And so I told them I was ready for the next chapter, and so should they be. And they turned to the denomination and said, we want our next minister. And they said, well, you might consider having an interim. And by the way, we have just created this new program called the Welcoming Congregation, and we're going to send trainers out to you to help you understand that when you consider a new minister, it doesn't matter whether they're male or female, they have to be considered equally. It doesn't matter whether they're a person of color or ethnically different than the majority of your congregation, they have to be considered equally. And it doesn't matter whether they're gay or lesbian, you have to consider them equally. And the congregation said yes, yes, and no. The Peoria Congregation Search Committee said to the denomination, well, in San Francisco, in Boston, on the liberal coast, it's fine, but it won't play in Peoria. 1987. Center of the continent, rural, dominated culture. They couldn't imagine a gay minister or lesbian minister serving them, and they said straight out, it doesn't play in Peoria. So the denomination sent them their interim minister, who was a gay man. And this is real. His name was Dick Hasty. True name. The congregation said, oh my God, what have you done to us? Except it turned out that Dick was charismatic, incredibly talented, remarkable preacher, and utterly capable of befriending and loving the congregation and being loved in return. They were afraid the congregation wouldn't thrive with a gay minister. And what they discovered was people flocked to the church. The church began to diversify, and they loved what was happening in the culture of the congregation. And so then it was time, after a year, for Dick to move on to his next church and for them to welcome their full-time settled minister. And the congregation said to Dick, well, where are you going? What are your plans? And he said, I'm going to have to be an interim minister at another church. But congregations won't accept settled, full-time, permanent gay ministers. The congregation said, that's outrageous. Truly. They said, what can we do? What can we do? He said, I'm going to apply for one settled ministry and be open to interim ministries. And the congregation said, we will write, we will call, we will campaign with that church. They need to know how good you are. He applied to the Springfield, Massachusetts UU Church, where he was called as their settled minister and served for over 25 years with distinction. One of our finest colleagues. What the congregation realized is, it's personal. In the abstract, those gay ministers could ruin our church. In the personal, Dick was an extraordinary human being, and we loved him, in the particular and in the personal. It is personal, and it matters. It wasn't just about our congregations. It was also about what our denomination was doing. John Burens was the president of our denomination when we created the Gray Hymnal, the UU Gray Hymnal. If you have one close to you, you can open it up. In the front part, about after the preface, it lists, right after the preface, it lists the Hymnal Resource Commission. The chair of the commission was Mark Bellatini, one of our first openly gay ministers. Not only were they serving our congregations, they were forming the very nature of our movement by forming the hymnal culture of our movement. Mark Bellatini, one of our most talented ministers, wound up in Columbus, Ohio with a ministry lasting almost 30 years. One of our finest. I think that Sunday morning we should talk a little bit about what the holy is. I believe that we encounter the holy when we allow ourselves to be fully present in any given moment. Like now. Like this breath. Like this precious life that each of us has. We encounter the holy when we live in gratitude for the life that we have been given. We encounter the holy when we experience love between ourselves and others. We experience the holy when we're a part of that which reconciles and brings justice, because justice making is love in action. And in that context, we live in a racist, sexist, homophobic, misogynist culture. Am I preaching to the choir, or am I talking to people who don't get it yet? We can say, well, yeah, that's you, but not me. And I say it's all of us. It's us, and when we realize where we are uncomfortable a little bit, then we do the hard work of growing into becoming the people we claim to be. I remember the first time I did a gay wedding. And the couple says to me, "Can we kiss at the end?" And I realized I was uncomfortable. I didn't say that. I just said, "Well, do you kiss at home?" "Well, yeah. It's your wedding." And I learned that I could be both uncomfortable and love what I was seeing. It's the work. It's the real work. Pastor Hughes was on the Oklahoma Interfaith RAIN AIDS Ministry Board. He was also a seminarian at SMU in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, African American. He decided one of the classes offered was learning to live with and promote diversity in the ministry. Being African American, he thought, "This is a cakewalk, baby." I've been doing diversity my entire life. I'll get an easy A here. And so part of the work was to do reading and do seminars and do the discussions and to hear the lectures, but it was also to live in a diverse setting for several weeks of the semester. And so they assigned Pastor Hughes to a Euro-American couple, professionally successful in the Hyde Park area, both exceptionally talented career people, just a couple, no children. And so he went to their house in Hyde Park, and he thought, these white folks, I'm comfortable with them. I see a lot of them. Rich people, I'm comfortable with rich people. They got money. That's nothing. They shouldn't be bad because they got money, And so he shows up at the house, and he knocks at the door, and Bob opens the door, and he says, "Hey, come on in. I'm working on dinner. I'm cooking dinner, and Renee will be home soon." And he's working on dinner, and in a while, at the front door downstairs, is an upstairs flat, they hear Renee coming in, and Renee comes up the stairs, comes right over and gives Bob a big hug and kiss. And Pastor Hughes says, "Well, I guess I'm in for it now." Renee was a man, not a woman. He thought he had diversity figured out until that moment. And he realized that he had some work to do and began to do that work. But they were a really talented, loving couple. They were a very healthy relationship. And he discovered after living with them for several weeks how much he enjoyed them and how dear in just a few weeks they had become to him. He shared this when asked why it was he was on the RAIN board with us. He said, because a year later, Bob died of AIDS. And I give my time in remembrance of Bob because it matters to be an ally. And so during the AIDS epidemic, people didn't have a lot of choice about whether they were out or not. If they were sick, they were out. And we sang to them, and we made quilts for them, and we lived in solidarity with them. And we sang for our lives. Well, now AIDS is a little bit worse than diabetes, but it's a medically managed illness. People who have AIDS and AIDS. Magic Johnson, baby, Magic Johnson, right? Has AIDS. He was diagnosed and people said, oh, he's going to be gone. And then the cocktail came in. And because he was rich and famous, he was one of the first people to get it, and he's still there. A medically managed illness. But I tell us that we are still singing for our lives. But now it's for our transgendered brothers and sisters. The U.S. Federal Center for Disease Control, the CDC, says 26% of all transgender people in the United States tried to commit suicide in the last 12 months. I want you to hear that. In the last 12 months, 26% of all transgendered people in our country tried to commit suicide. CDC surveys indicate just about 50% of all transgendered people have at some time in their life considered suicide. In the face of that, the federal government would like to make treatment of transgendered people impossible, creating barriers to them receiving the medication that allows them to be transgendered. J. Noel Gardner was a member of my congregation in Kansas City, Missouri. She was a transgendered woman. Some folks who are transgendered, male to female, are just awkward as all get out, and it's hard to miss. I mean, really. They have to learn how to do it, and they don't know how to do it to begin with. They weren't a teenage girl. They get to be a teenage girl as an adult, you know. However, J. Noel had been transitioned for a decade, and she was beautiful, and she was good at it. And then her husband died, who was a Kansas state legislator. His addict, ne'er-do-well son said, there was no marriage. She has no right to inherit anything that was his or theirs. The will is not valid because they were never married. This was early 2000s. Suddenly, she went from being a professor at Park University, north of Kansas City, with a private life. Suddenly, she is the poster child for transgender rights on the front page of the Kansas City Star. And the case goes very public nationally. Transgender rights. Her university said, we don't like the publicity, and pull her tenure. Her friends said, oh my God, I didn't know you were transgender. And she'd say, I'm not transgender. I was transgender. I'm a woman now. And she was. She said, all I really want is my Steinway piano. He can have all the rest. I don't need the money. And then she went into a spiral of depression. One of my parishioners, who I thought the highest of, came to me and said, did you know that J. Noel is in the hospital? She tried to commit suicide and she needs you. We loved her back into life. The congregation surrounded her. We took turns visiting her. We loved her back into life. They lost the case at the Kansas State Supreme Court. Marriage equality has changed that. But she was so tired of being public that she took a job in an international university and left the United States to a place where she would be private and more accepted. There are so many people who are termed sexual minorities. Some are men and some are women and some aren't binary. There's some folks in the middle, you know, and some of us are more in the middle than others. That's about gender. And there are people who are same-sex orientation, and there are some people who are heterosexual entirely, and there are some people who are somewhere in between. And through all that struggle and all that self-differentiation, for over 50 years, the Unitarian Universalists have said, we're your allies. You deserve to be treated like human beings. And so I call us this morning in closing to be allies. To be allies. To yourself, to each other, to those you know who are GLBTQ or questioning. Educate yourself. Understand queer history. Read a queer book. Oh, I'm not homophobic. I don't read queer books. Find your edge. How many of you have been to a gay bar? Yeah. How many of you have been to a lesbian bar? Be allies in the work. Create safe space for people who need it. Support advocates and organizations that do advocacy. Remember that justice making is love in action. And now I want you to sing as if it matters. Join with me now in our repeating hymn number 170. We're going to go back to 170. Verses 1, 2, and 5. A little faster tempo, a little more heart. You can do it. Please stand as you're able and join in the singing. Thank you, and please be seated. So often in Unitarian Universalist churches, we say, love is the spirit of this church. And service, I say, is our prayer. And love is love in action when we seek justice. And who you are, however you are, is good. That's what we say. You're not born in sin. You aren't sinful because you care. You aren't sinful because you love. You aren't sinful because you're, oh my God, sexual. Hallelujah, brothers and sisters. We are blessed by being human. Thank you for being here this morning.
This ends the recording part of our service, and now we're going to start trail markers.